In July of 1947, something crashed in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico. The Army initially announced that they'd recovered a flying disc and then quickly changed their story to a weather balloon. But what really happened to that debris, and where did it go? The military said it was sent to higher headquarters, but UFO researchers believe those materials were transported to Wright Field in Ohio, now known as Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And that's where our story begins. You won't want to miss this one. In July of 1947, the Roswell Army Airfield in New Mexico made this big announcement that they had recovered a flying disc from a local ranch. But literally, the very next day, they completely backtracked and told everyone it was just a weather balloon. And I mean, pretty much nobody believed that. News reports at the time said the wreckage, whatever it actually was, had been sent to higher headquarters for analysis. And so for decades afterward, UFO researchers have been saying that higher headquarters was actually Wright Field in Ohio, which is now called the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Around that same time, a pilot named Captain Oliver Henderson, who everyone called Pappy, revealed something major to his wife. He supposedly transported strange debris and several small alien bodies from Roswell to Wright Field. That's a pretty wild thing to tell your spouse over dinner. And then there's Marion Black Mac Magruder, who was a World War II ace. His children claim that their father saw a living extraterrestrial being at Wright Field. And Magruder apparently told his family that it was a really shameful thing that the military destroyed this creature by conducting all these tests on it. These accounts may be unverified, but they established the first connection between Roswell and what would later be known as Hangar 18. Okay. Whoa. Hold on, Dave Mustaine. Not yet. As Hangar 18, Wright Field was home to the Air Material Command, which was responsible for analyzing all sorts of recovered hardware. On September 22, 1947, the chief of the Air Material Command, Brigadier General Nathan Twining, wrote this secret memo where he had actually acknowledged that flying discs were something real and not visionary or fictitious. He noted that they hadn't verified any crash-recovered hardware yet, but he recommended doing research, which is a pretty interesting thing to say if all they had was a weather balloon. But by the late 1940s, this idea that Wright-Patterson was keeping crashed saucer debris or even alien remains was starting to really spread in UFO circles. And in the 1950s, there was this FBI memo, which was later declassified, that recorded a third-hand report about how 3 so-called flying saucers and 3 small alien bodies were recovered in New Mexico and sent to Wright Field. The FBI later admitted this memo, known as the Guy Hotel memo, was probably just repeating a known UFO hoax, but by then, this story was already out there. And between 1948 and 1952, the Air Force actually launched several official UFO investigations that were headquartered at Wright-Patterson. First, there was Project Sign, which began in late 1947 to collect and evaluate all these UFO reports. And the analysis for Project Sign actually drafted something called an estimate of the situation. It suggested that some UFOs were extraterrestrial, but Air Force leadership completely rejected this conclusion, and they replaced Project Sign in 1949 with the more skeptical Project Grudge. Can't have that kind of talk in official documents after all. Then, in 1952, the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Wright-Patterson established Project Blue Book, which was led initially by Captain Edward Ruppelt with his astronomer named J. Allen Hynek as a consultant. Project Blue Book would run for 17 years as the Air Force's public UFO investigation program, and it ultimately cataloged 12,618 sightings. But they officially found no evidence of any alien spacecraft, and a lot of people were just not convinced by Blue Book's findings. A peace activist by the name of Donald Kehoe actually accused the Air Force of conducting a UFO cover-up, and by the middle of the 1950s, you had UFO groups like NICAP or NICAP, and they were really pressuring the government for more transparency. But what most people didn't know was that behind the scenes, Wright-Patterson's technical units were analyzing unusual sightings and artifacts. The base had this Foreign Technology Division, which they called FTD, that routinely handled crashed foreign aircraft and advanced technology. In 1953, Wright-Patterson engineers examined these metal fragments that were allegedly from a UFO, but they were found to be just ordinary waste slag. Around the same time, there were 2 CIA-sponsored scientific panels that reviewed all this UFO evidence, and both of them concluded there was no extraterrestrial threat. But they kept one panel's conclusions classified, and this secrecy just fed the public suspicion of a cover-up. Now at this point, the term Hangar 18 hadn't really entered the lexicon, but all the ingredients for this legend were in place. By the 1960s, Wright-Patterson's reputation as UFO headquarters had led to all these persistent rumors about hidden alien evidence. Project Blue Book was still investigating sightings from its offices at Wright-Patterson's Area B, but a lot of people felt that Blue Book was just a public relations exercise. An Air Force memo in 1969 even admitted UFO reports, which could affect national security, were handled outside Blue Book channels. And all this did was fuel beliefs that there really was this secret blue room at Wright-Patterson that contained the real UFO data. In 1966, a journalist named John Fuller published a book called Incident at Exeter, where he referenced rumors, and they are only rumors, of extraterrestrial bodies being kept in a morgue at Wright-Patterson. This was one of the first published hints of alien bodies at the base, and the following year, a novel titled The Fortet Conspiracy builds a fictional story around Wright-Patterson's Foreign Technology Division hiding a crashed saucer. And here's where things get really interesting. Around the same time, Senator Barry Goldwater, who was also an Air Force Reserve Brigadier General, asked his friend General Curtis LeMay about all these rumors of a secret UFO room at Wright-Patterson. And according to Goldwater, LeMay just gave me hell, is what he said, and angrily told him to never bring up the subject again. Goldwater later clarified that while he'd heard stories of alien bodies, he himself had never seen any and never heard credible evidence of them. But this dramatic incident just added more credibility to all these conversations about a secret UFO facility. I mean, why get so angry if there's nothing to hide? But Project Blue Book was terminated in '69 following the skeptical Condon report. The Air Force officially exited the UFO business, which only intensified suspicions of a cover-up. With Blue Book gone, many speculated any recovered evidence might be hidden in a remote vault or hangar at Wright-Patterson. But the term Hangar 18 still hadn't come to public yet. But the term Hangar 18 finally entered the public consciousness in 1974 through this self-described ufologist named Robert Spencer Carr. On January 16, 74, the Tampa Tribune actually reported Carr's claim that in Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, there are 2 flying saucers of unknown origin. And this was the first known public mention of Hangar 18 as an alleged stored site for alien craft. On October 11th that same year, Carr expanded his story on a Tampa radio show, and he ignited quite the media frenzy. He claimed that in 1948, a UFO had crash-landed near Aztec, New Mexico, which was a separate incident from Roswell, and that the Air Force recovered an intact saucer that was transported to Wright-Patterson. He claimed there were 12 small alien beings from the ship that were kept in cold storage, and his sources were a biologist who examined the bodies, a security guard who watched over the UFO, and a military officer who actually witnessed the alien autopsies. He provided all these anatomical details, saying the beings resembled small humans, like 3 to 4 feet tall and white skin, light hair, blue eyes, and Carr insisted the 12 bodies were still preserved, even then, in deep freeze. That sounds more like the descriptions of children than aliens, though, doesn't it? This sensational story spread worldwide through wire services, and the Air Force quickly responded. They flatly and unequivocally denied Carr's account and pointed that there was no Hangar 18 on the base. At least, no hangar with that actual designation. Wright-Patterson's hangars typically have 2-digit or 3-digit designations, and Carr was apparently referring to Building 18 in Area B, which was a complex of laboratories. Or is it laboratories? Carr continued to embellish his claims throughout the 70s, and by 79, he was talking about this nurse who witnessed an alien autopsy herself, but his credibility was starting to deteriorate under scrutiny. His own son described him as a habitual liar who loved telling these preposterous stories as truth. And then you had UFO historians who noticed all these similarities between Carr's narrative and elements of that 1968 sci-fi novel, The Four-Tech Conspiracy. But despite all these credibility issues, his revelation had this enduring impact. They popularized Hangar 18 as a synonym for hidden UFO evidence, and Carr's story also resurrected the Aztec crash in UFO mythology, which was previously thought to be a debunked hoax. The Air Force made calculated efforts at transparency to counter this growing legend. Wright-Patterson officials reportedly invited journalists to tour Building 18 in the mid-70s to try and squash all these rumors. Building 18 housed the Aero Propulsion Laboratory, not a secret vault, and reporters found no UFOs or aliens in the building. The Air Force highlighted that Hangar 18 did not officially exist on any military map of any kind, but there's another twist in this story. Base folklore suggested Building 18 once had a classified role as a cryogenic research lab for rocket fuels in the 1950s. A fire there allegedly led to safety-driven secrecy. Meanwhile, outside Wright-Patterson, the Roswell incident roared back to life. And in 1978, nuclear physicist Stanton T. Friedman located Major Jesse Marcel, who had recovered debris at Roswell. Marcel, who was freed from decades of silence, just claimed the weather balloon explanation was a cover story and asserted that the material he handled was nothing from this Earth. Marcel said the foil shown in the press photos was just simply phony wreckage. His revelations were featured in a 1980 book called The Roswell Incident by Charles Berlitz and William Moore. Many Roswell witnesses recalled wreckage and possibly bodies being transported out of New Mexico, and several claimed the material went to Wright-Patterson for analysis. And then you had retired Air Force Brigadier General Arthur Exon, who was stationed at Wright Field in '47 and testified that wreckage and bodies from Roswell arrived at Rex Field. Exon claimed that a super-secret committee at the base oversaw close examination of highly classified UFO incidents. An actual Air Force general confirming this stuff is significant. Wright-Patterson employee Norma Gardner claimed she cataloged UFO parts in the 1960s and typed autopsy reports on these bizarre extraterrestrial cadavers. She claimed that she once glimpsed 2 small alien bodies being moved down a hallway. Now, by 1980, the Roswell case and Hangar 18 lore were merging into one grand narrative of government cover-up. And that's when Hollywood got involved. The legend reached its pop culture zenith in 1980 with the release of this film called Hangar 18. It's not exactly a cinematic masterpiece, but it was a low-budget thriller that dramatized a UFO crash being hidden at an Air Force hangar. The movie was loosely based on Carr's stories, but rode the wave of fascination that he created, and the film's climax featured alien bodies stored in these cryogenic containers. And of course, cue Megadeth. In 1990, Megadeth released their own song titled Hangar 18 from their album Rust in Peace. And even Star Trek got on the action. Deep Space Nine jokingly depicted a 1947 Hangar 18 in a time travel episode. But folks, there's more. Jumping back to 1980 for a second, you had more whistleblower-type accounts that were surfacing. Magruder's story of seeing a live alien at Wright Field became public, and this researcher named Leonard Stringfield began publishing compilations of what he called crash and retrieval reports. These were dossiers of second-hand testimonies about saucer wreckage and bodies at various bases. Wright-Patterson figured prominently in these accounts, and by the late 80s, Stringfield had amassed numerous accounts claiming all the same thing, that there were multiple UFO craft and dozens of alien corpses in storage. And these tales often mentioned Wright-Patterson's hangars or underground vaults as holding these secrets. So we've got all these stories, but why did the Air Force continuously deny everything? The Air Force periodically reasserted that nothing extraterrestrial was ever hidden at Wright-Patt. And in January of 1985, they actually issued an unusually direct statement to try and take care of all these rumors. And they basically said that there are not now, nor have there ever been, any extraterrestrial visitors or equipment on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They reiterated that there has never actually been a Hangar 18 on the base. Despite these firm denials, true believers, of course, were never swayed. By this time, the epicenter of UFO conspiracy had started drifting westward. In 1989, Bob Lazar claimed to have worked on alien spacecraft at a secret facility near Area 51 in Nevada. Lazar's sensational story made Area 51 a household name in UFO lore, and Hangar 18's legend was somewhat upstaged but endured. In 1988, Senator Barry Goldwater spoke openly to The New Yorker about his failed attempt to access Wright-Patterson's secret room. Wright-Patterson continued to have real ties to this research, but the Foreign Technology Division was rumored to have a compartmentalized unit investigating UFOs even after Blue Book ended. Now, this alleged unit was sometimes dubbed Project Moondust or Project Bluefly. These were actual programs tasked with retrieving falling space debris, possibly including UFOs, and the Air Force sometimes allowed a peek behind the curtain. In 1988, a local TV news crew filmed inside certain facilities at Wright-Patterson, showing nothing unusual. Base public affairs began categorizing the Hangar 18 story as just an urban myth and nothing more. In fact, a Wright-Patterson spokeswoman explained to the public that the only aliens on base were just mannequins in the Air Force Museum's UFO exhibit. Clearly, they were just trying to put this legend to rest. And of course, the 90s brought the 50th anniversary of Roswell, and, there's just more intense scrutiny and alleged cover-ups. Now, interestingly, in 1994, the General Accounting Office launched an inquiry into the Roswell incident. The Air Force had declassified 2 exhaustive reports in response. You had the Roswell Report, Fact versus Fiction in the New Mexico Desert in 1994, and the Roswell Report, Case Closed in 1997. These reports admitted the weather balloon story was a cover, but only to conceal a classified spy balloon program called Project Mogul. The Air Force claimed the strange debris was from a Mogul balloon array, and they just suggested that those alien bodies were simply misremembered parachute test dummies from the 50s. They stated that they found no records at all of alien technology or any sort of bodies. The Air Force simply stated that it found no records of alien materials ever being sent to Wright-Patterson. If Roswell wreckage went to Wright Field, they claimed it was just balloon scraps, nothing exotic. Now, the accounting discovered that many Roswell Army Base administrative files from 1947 had been mysteriously destroyed in the 1950s. That's incredibly convenient, isn't it? It's suspicious, but no smoking gun emerged. Now, in 1994, Colonel Philip Corso, who was retired, began speaking privately about distributing Roswell artifacts to defense contractors. These claims were later published in his 1997 book, The Day After Roswell. Corso alleged alien technology was sent to Wright-Patterson's FTD for analysis and claimed this led indirectly to advances in fiber optics and integrated circuitry. But folks, let's not forget about the Deathbed confessions. Civilian employee Norma Gardner revealed details of handling alien biological material when she felt safe from retaliation, and famously claimed that Uncle Sam can't do anything to you once you're in your grave. You had First Lieutenant Walter Haut, who wrote the original Roswell press release, left a sealed affidavit opened after his 2005 death, and it described being shown an alien craft and bodies in 1947 that would be flown to Field Command at Dayton, or Wright Field. So what is the actual Hangar 18 then? Is there really a building with that number? Well, the Air Force emphatically says there is no Hangar 18. There's a Building 18 at Wright-Patterson, a large complex of labs on the older part of the base. And in UFO lore, Hangar 18 is often a catch-all label for any secure facility. Some point to a classified underground vaults, the Blue Room, near Building 18. Others note Wright-Patterson has many hangars that have changed designations over the years. Wright Field's original World War II era structures included Building 4, which was a modification hangar adjacent to Building 18. Some tellings claim Hangar 18 and Building 18 are interconnected with secret tunnels. This blurred mix of fact and fiction means that Hangar 18 has become more legend than literal location. What is documented is that during the Cold War, Building 18 hosted classified programs of terrestrial nature. After a 1952 explosion in Building 18, the rocket fuel lab was moved and the site repurposed for foreign aircraft evaluation. And throughout the 60s, Wright-Patterson's Foreign Technology Division reverse-engineered exotic hardware like captured Soviet MiGs, recovered spy satellites, that kind of thing. Base secrecy about legitimate projects could easily spark rumors. I mean, a guarded building full of dismantled MiGs might morph into a hangar full of flying saucer parts in secondhand accounts. The Kecksburg UFO incident of 1965, or an object that fell in Pennsylvania, was allegedly connected to Wright-Patterson. Locals reported that the object was hauled away on an Air Force flatbed truck, with Wright-Patterson mentioned as the likely endpoint. Kecksburg's craft then joined the Roswell flying saucer in the mythical Hangar 18. Other cases woven into the Hangar 18 tapestry include a ghost bomber that crashed in the 1950s near Pittsburgh, and then you had another 1953 crash near Kingman, Arizona, and the legendary 1897 Aurora, Texas airship crash. It made sense that Wright-Patterson became the common denominator where all unexplained roads converged. It's like the Grand Central Station of alien artifacts. Decades later, Hangar 18 remains a staple of UFO mythology. Simply put, the truth to Hangar 18 remains a mystery. And because you guys made it to the end, I want you to all comment below Hangar 18, so that way I know who made it to the end of the video and who didn't. And if you guys enjoy storytelling like this, where we dive into strange cases of the mysterious and supernatural in a kind of cinematic storytelling fashion, what are you waiting for? Smack that like and subscribe button for more content just like this. As always, never forget, I love you all, keep an open mind, and I'll see you all in the very next episode.